This is my 2003 Honda Odyssey. It's got about 255,000 miles on it at the time of this video. This van has been in my family for its entire life. My parents bought it new in 2004 and it was passed down to me in 2015. Initially, I used the van pretty rarely. It was my secondary vehicle at that time. My primary vehicle up until 2019 was one of two Miatas. I had a red NA from 2015 to 2017 and a black NB from 2016 to 2019. So during those times I mostly just used the van when I needed to move furniture, for example, if I was changing apartments, or to move tires or move other big items like that. I also used it to pick up my nieces and nephew from school occasionally. And in 2017, I used this van to move from North Carolina to California. I fit all my stuff into the van and made the drive. The only item of mine that didn't fit into the back of the van was the NB, which I shipped to California a couple months later. And as for the NA, I sold it shortly before that move. And once I came to California, I started going snowboarding in Tahoe in the winter. Of course, I was taking the van there, not the NB, so this is when the van started to get more use. And when the 2018 ski season came around, I thought I should try to sleep in the van for overnight trips so that I could easily spend weekends there in Tahoe without having to pay for a room every time. And Tahoe was about a 4-hour drive from Santa Cruz, where I was living at the time, so it made the most sense to go for 2 days at a time instead of just doing a day trip. And so around that time, when that ski season was starting in 2018, I ended up getting a twin bed frame for free on Craigslist. I kind of just picked it up on a whim, deciding to see how it would work in the van, and it actually ended up working pretty well for my needs at that time. My needs at that time just basically being overnight trips. The only issue was that it took up a lot of space, so there wasn't much room for anything else. But I had enough room for all my snowboarding gear, etc. So that's what I used the first few times I tried sleeping in the van. And again, that was just doing overnights in Tahoe. In 2019, I decided I wanted to try full-timing it in the van, so it made the most sense to sell the NB at that time, which is what I did. And then July 1st of 2019 is when I started full-timing in the van, and I did this until April of 2020, soon after COVID hit, and I ended up getting a place at that time. And since then, as far as sleeping in it or camping in it, I've mostly just done trips of 2 to 3 nights at a time, although I've had a few instances of about 2 weeks at a time as well, but I haven't full-timed it since 2020. And as far as just driving versus sleeping in it, the car is my daily driver and it's the only vehicle I own currently, so I've been daily driving it since 2019. I built out the van around September or October of 2019. I drove the van up to my friend's place outside of Seattle and hung out there for a few weeks, and he let me use his garage and all his tools, and it was awesome hanging out up there. Our other friend joined us as well, which was cool, and I was able to finish all of the woodwork in the van before I had to leave, so that worked out well. That was a pretty awesome trip. So here I'm just going to post whatever pictures or videos I have from building the van, and I didn't really prioritize taking pictures or videos during the actual build process. I think I did more so earlier on, so most of the pictures are from stripping the van out and putting the floor in. And then there's a couple pictures of the cabinets and things like that, and some pictures of the bed set up. But But then as it got closer to the end of the build, I was kind of just rushing to get it done and didn't really take any pictures later on. But I'm just going to put whatever I do have here. So as far as the actual build itself, you guys have been kind of seeing what's going on in there. It's pretty much just woodwork. There's no electric. The only other thing that there is a sink on the far end with a manual foot pump and two 2.5 gallon tanks in the cabinet below the sink. I use one of those tanks as a freshwater and one of them as gray water. And then, of course, the bed slides out into a twin-size bed when you have it extended. You can also hinge the bed upwards to access storage underneath. So here's the storage compartment in the back. that goes under the floor. Just lifts up like that, and that's where the third row seat used to be that folds into the floor. I just removed that seat, and this stretches from one end, actually all the way over here, all the way to underneath the bed on the other side. So there's quite a bit of space in there, which is great. That's probably the biggest storage compartment in here. Under the bed is a pretty long and wide storage compartment, but it's short. This one has more height here for sure. And then there's also this little compartment right here where I can put a skateboard. Just pulls out of there. And that's that. Alright, so here we have more storage, the main cabinets. I still have to finish burning this pattern that I drew on here, but I haven't had a chance to do it yet. So these are, pretty simple. I just have magnetic catches, one in each corner on these four and on these two back here as well. I have one on each of these two doors back here. So just the metal piece and then the magnetic catch, and then I have these little handles that I just got off Amazon. What's cool is that with this strip in the front here that sticks out, it actually catches the door when it comes down, so you can use it as like a table. It's like decently sturdy. It'll definitely hold stuff, although it's not super stiff, but I haven't had any issues with it not holding anything. So this one, same thing. This one maybe a little more sturdier. And then if you're kind of sitting back in here with the door closed, I'll have these cushions lined up, and I'll kind of sit back sometimes. Then you can just have them both down, and it's like a longer table that you can use, which is cool. That was actually by accident that happened. I put these on, these strips, because these screws were actually a little bit longer than the thickness of this plywood here, so they would have been sticking out the front. So I put this strip on just so that I didn't have screws sticking out of the front. And then it was a nice surprise that when I opened it, I was like, oh, these strips actually catch against the wood on the bottom and hold it in place instead of having it flop all the way down. So that was pretty cool. There were a number of things that were kind of accidentally happened like that, which turned out well. And then these bottom cabinets are just the same as the top ones. And then on top of the sofa area, there's this kind of wooden panel that I tried to cut to shape around the windows and the pillars. And there's two storage compartments here. This one's a little bit wider and deeper, and this one's shallower and just a little bit smaller overall. And let me see if I can show that. So this first one goes down about that deep. The second one is quite a bit deeper. Yeah, there you can see. So, good amount of space in that one. This is what the passenger side looks like. Got 4 cubbies here on the side. They're probably like 14 inches deep going to the end of the box there. And pretty simple. You could put shoes in there, for example. And then here is the other under the floor compartment. I showed the one in the back, that's a big one. This one is a smaller one here up front. Basically it's just this box that I put underneath the floor there. And it goes kind of deeper back, so the size of the rectangle is a little bigger than this opening. So there's some space in the back and then a little bit of space in the front as well. So it's pretty shallow, but it's decent. The actual rectangle is a decent size. Oops, so that's that. And then I've got the foot pump here for the water, which runs into the cabinet right here. I do have a wall, a little panel on this side of the cabinet, but at the bottom I cut it off so that I could put the hoses inside. And can open this up as well. So this is what it looks like underneath the sink. So you have the foot pump with one hose going to the freshwater tank over here, and then you have the gray water tank next to it. So the freshwater pulls the pump pulls it from there and then pushes it up to the faucet there. And obviously from the sink it drains down into this gray water tank right here. Usually keep my stove here on the side, but you know, there's room. I've thought about putting little shelves in here, maybe one shelf on each, at least on this side, or going across to the other side, but I didn't end up doing any of that. And then I put these little 1x2s on the sides just so that these things don't, you know, move around when you're driving. They're pretty solid, so that works out well. Now on the driver's side, there's also access to the area underneath the sink, kind of identical to the other side as far as the door setup. And this way you can just you can pull these out from this side, so you're not trying to pull them out through the van over there. You can just walk up and pull them out easily. So you just, you know, unscrew this thing, pull the hose out, and you can take each tank out to either dump it, the gray water, or to fill fresh water in there as well. And actually you can see my skateboard here, where it sits. I showed how you can put it in from the other side, the cabinet over on that side, or the cabinet door over on that side, and when you put it in, that's where it ends up. The thing that's kind of cool is with this setup, you can just like, you can open them up and just see all the way through the van. It's just kind of interesting. I'll show the front of the van as well, just because why not? Not much up here. I try to keep it pretty tidy. I do keep a jug of oil in here because the car consumes a little bit of oil, so sometimes I have to top it off. So I always try to make sure I have some oil in the car. I keep this snow brush scraper in here usually just right there. It kind of fits nicely, and the door closes fine with it kind of sitting right there. Especially if I'm in a snowy area in the winter, I'll make sure I have that brush. The only other thing up here is the original rear view mirror got a crack in it a long time ago, so we put this convex mirror on here that just kind of latches on the top and bottom. But it's worked out well. I actually love it. It gives me a wider field of view, and it looks great. So that works out. It's been on there a long time. That's pretty much it. Pretty happy with how the interior looks for a car with 250,000 plus miles. Looks pretty good up here. No cracking in the seats, surprisingly. No cracking on the dash or anything like that either, which is great. So yeah, pretty happy with that. There's plenty of room for me to sit in here. I can sit up straight. My head doesn't hit the ceiling. Probably got like 3/4 of an inch above my head, half an inch maybe, so it's pretty close, but I'm able to sit comfortably in here. I can, use one of these tables for, if I'm trying to cook something, chop something up. I usually just end up using this countertop here. I can work here if I need to, do whatever. I'll oftentimes put the stove up here in this area, and I can cook on that with this door open. I haven't cooked too much in this van, but when I have, or if I needed to boil water for something, I usually just put the stove here, and most of the time open that door. So yeah, I can be nice and comfortable in here, sit up nice and straight and not hit my head. As I get over towards this side of the van, the roof slopes downwards, so I can't, here I'm like, my head's kind of touching. But if I want to put my legs out, then I can also just come to the end here and kind of lean back and put my legs out, and I can use the computer this way, or do whatever else, just kind of chill. And even with the door closed, there's enough space to kind of just sit here, which is nice. So yeah, the height kind of works out pretty well, at least for me. So this is how I usually will chill in the van when I have all the doors closed, like in the evening, before going to sleep or something like that. If I'm just spending any time in the van hanging out, this is usually kind of the position I'll be in. I have my 3 cushions just lined up behind me here, a little bit of an angle, and I can kind of just lean back on them, and it's actually really comfortable. I also sometimes put one of these over the side. You can have like an armrest if you want. Sometimes do that. You can be working on the computer here pretty easily, or I'd oftentimes have my phone up here leaning against something, and I'd just watch something on the phone, just because it's easier than pulling out the laptop, making sure the laptop's charged and whatnot. So I didn't use the laptop too much in here unless I had to do any sort of work, but if I did, then I would oftentimes be in this sort of position, and I can work nice and comfy right here. Or I would, if I wasn't sitting here, if I had to do work, I would sometimes sit in the front passenger seat and just kind of sit there and work. But otherwise, this position is super comfy. So probably the best kind of way to just hang out in the van, other than just kind of sitting here with these cushions, cushions behind me. You can even angle them a little bit and kind of lay back a little bit like that. And you can kind of chill this way too. And actually it's pretty nice sitting, let's see, you guys can see here. Yeah, kind of sitting like back here is nice because I can keep this, I can keep this door open right here, and then I have nice, nice view out the door, kind of feels more open and airy. So I can just, I can sit right here and just be looking directly out the door there, which is nice. So the last thing I want to show is these window covers. These would be what I would put up if I'm sleeping in the van, just so you can't see inside. All these are is Reflectix covered with black felt, and then on this side I've just glued this pattern fabric on just to look nicer. This side faces the inside of the van, the black felt faces the outside of the van, and they just stick in place with friction. So this one, for example, would be the driver's side rear, all the way rear window, and you would just kind of put it up and push it all along the edge, and it kind of snugs itself in place in there and doesn't seem to fall out. So that works pretty well. Some people will use Reflectix without any sort of covering on it, but I've found that it just doesn't look very good. It doesn't look discreet at all. You can just see the Reflectix through the window. Reflectix is just bubble wrap covered in some sort of silver foil type material, so it's really obvious that you have something covering your windows if you just have the straight Reflectix in there. So having this black felt in combination with tinted windows looks really good, really discreet, because it just looks like a tinted window when you have this up and you look at it from the outside. So that works out pretty well. This is like the whole stack of all of the window covers, and these I just kind of keep them a little more organized usually, but I'll slide these in place next to the right of the sink cabinet. There's enough of a gap there that these kind of slide in nicely right there, and they pretty much stay there all the time unless it's nighttime and I need to put the covers up. Alright, so for putting these in place, I usually just put the bottom in first and then kind of push around the sides, and that's in place. It's not going anywhere. Same thing on this one. I'll put the bottom in first and then kind of push on the top and the sides a bit, and there you go. So very quick and easy. And then you just pull them out. And that's that. And then just for comparison's sake, this side I do not have the window covers in. You can see how you can kind of see through. It's not super sunny out right now either, so you might be able to see a little more if it was sunnier, but it looks pretty black. And this side with the window covers in, obviously you can't see through, but again, it kind of just looks like regular tinted windows. You can't really tell if there's anything covering them on the inside. So, ends up looking pretty good. Again, this is, the other side. So, looks pretty similar, especially if you're just kind of glancing at it. One thing that I did do for the window covers is that just for the rear windshield cover, I put, because this one is so much bigger and wider than all of the other covers, I found that it would sometimes start to sag or fall off near the top. So I put some Velcro along the top here, just one side. I'm not sure what the two sides of Velcro are called, but this is the more abrasive side. So I just used this this half of it, just this kind of abrasive half, and that sticks to the felt pretty nicely. So I didn't have to put, you know, I guess the other side is pretty much a felt type material anyways, so I didn't have to put that on the window cover. I just had to put this this half of the material up, and then the cover sticks to it nicely. Didn't need anything at the bottom, just those few strips at the top. And I'll mention that I used some sort of regular Velcro initially, and when the car would just sit in the sun, it would just bake that. It's right here at the top, so it would just get completely baked and heated up through the window there when it was a hot day, and it would start to like melt the adhesive. It would start to melt the adhesive on the back of the Velcro, and the Velcro would kind of sag off. So I ended up getting this Velcro, which is intended for automotive use for high heat, and this adhesive has been much better. It hasn't softened up or come off at all. I think this on the side is probably some of the old adhesive from the old Velcro. But yeah, once I used this high temp Velcro, it stayed on perfectly. So that is good. This is where I keep the window covers. This gap to the right of the sink cabinet. It's not ideal because they kind of stick out a bit, but it's the best spot I've found in the van for them. When I was building out the van, I didn't account for these window covers. I hadn't made them at the time and didn't really think about figuring out a spot for them. So this spot works out the best. It kind of covers up the foot pump a little bit, which is a little bit annoying, but I mean, there's enough, you can still kind of get to it right there without much issue. So yeah, so the spot kind of works out well. I wish they were maybe a little bit more contained somewhere and not just kind of, you know, hanging out like this, but aside from that, works out pretty well. And I'll also mention that I have this curtain right here also, and this is just a piece of, this is like a blackout curtain with a couple of clips, and so if I do need a curtain, I don't usually put one up most of the time, but sometimes I will, and when I do, I'll use this just this like bungee cord that goes across, and I'll wrap it around the end all the way across. One end of this this curtain, wrap it around there, and then I'll use one of these clips, and I'll clip it to the bungee cord, like at the end, or even clip it like way up here, one on each end, and that usually holds it in place. And then sometimes I'll use one of these pieces of tape. This is like gaffer tape, so I can just kind of keep reusing it, and that way it kind of sort of drapes over to here, and it'll be taped up, and then it'll come down behind these headrests. So it comes over and then down behind these, and the corners are kind of held up. This whole spot is kind of covered up by taping it over here, so it kind of drapes across. And you might have a little gap up at the top, but not really much. I don't even have my piece of tape on this side anymore, it looks like. But yeah, I haven't put that curtain up in quite a while. But I do have that if I want to put a curtain up, and it does provide good coverage too when it's up. So that, in addition to the window covers, will pretty much make this whole space all covered up. Although most of the time, if I'm just sleeping somewhere, I'll just put the window covers up and just kind of leave the front open. I'll actually put my my windshield reflectors up, my sun reflectors up in the windshield. So then all you have open is the side windows, and if you're kind of laying way back here, it's kind of ends up working out fine. So that's what I usually do, is just have all these side windows and this rear windshield covered up, and then just the front windshield covered up with the sun reflectors, and then the two side windows will just kind of be open. That's what I do most of the time, but sometimes I will put the curtain up as well. Also, here's a little clip of the faucet actually working with the foot pump. So there's the foot pump down there. You can see if I just push on it. So it's like, you get a bit at a time, but with each pump it comes out pretty nicely, so you can get like plenty of water. So yeah, that works out pretty well. Again, just to show what I'm doing down here. So you can get a decent amount of pressure behind it too, which is cool. And this is just copper tubing from Home Depot with shark bite connectors, which is super easy to use and put together. I took the van for its final drive recently. I drove it from Tahoe to Santa Cruz, and from Santa Cruz I took a long day driving it down the coast to Orange County. It was a beautiful drive. I think that road, Highway 1, is probably my favorite road that I've ever driven on. It's just so beautiful, and I've had the pleasure of driving it multiple times in the van, and so it was a great way to kind of send off the van by getting to drive down that coast one more time. And then on June 2nd, 2022, after almost 20 years in the family, the van sold. And the reason I sold it is because I'm planning on traveling around to other countries for a little while, so I won't be needing a vehicle for now. So it feels good to let it go and get rid of another possession of mine, and to know that somebody else will be continuing to drive it.